Guys, please check your audio and video settings, please. Class content, Spring 613, AO, not AOP, transaction management, transaction basics, need of Spring transaction, May 22nd. Yes, boss. Yesterday, what is that? We have understood lot difference between local transaction and distributed transaction. We also understand how 2PC protocol works. Then we have seen difference between flat transaction and nested transaction. Spring is the only one thing which supports local, distributed, flat, nested transaction. So it supports everything. It supports everything because it provides abstraction on various technologies, supporting various types of transactions. Okay, guys. Before arrival of Spring, before arrival of Spring, before arrival of Spring, before arrival of Spring, today's class is very crucial, guys. Please focus. Before arrival of Spring, programmers used to work with JDBC or Hibernate for local transaction management in programmatic approach. Programmatic approach means what? Writing Java code. Programmer used to work with. Yes, guys. Next, used to work with JTA, Java Transaction API. Java Transaction API. Okay. Java Transaction API for global transaction management. For global transaction management in programmatic approach. Again, Java code. People used to work with EJB, Enterprise Java Beans, for global transaction management in declarative approach. Declarative approach, which is nothing but XML. Global transaction management in what? Declarative approach. What approach, guys? Seriously, literally, what approach, guys? Declarative approach. Fine, boss. So work with JDBC. Now listen. JDBC code for local transaction management. JDBC code for local transaction management. Yes, boss. Public void, otherwise public return type, business method params. Public return type, business method params. Yes, boss. Here, begin transaction. begin transaction, con dot set auto commit false. In JDBC, begin transaction means disabling auto commit on database software. Execute transactional logic. Okay. Here, what is this? Execute the queries. Execute the non-select queries. Non-select SQL queries. Super boss. Okay. Here, what is that? Okay. If everything is smooth, guys. If everything is smooth, then what is this? Commit transaction. What is that? Commit transaction. Con dot commit off. Super. If any problem comes in this whole process, catch SQL exception. Catch SQL exception SC. What is that? Con dot rollback off. Catch SQL exception SC con dot rollback off. If any problem comes, try to roll back the transaction. Roll back transaction. Okay, guys. End of the business method. Yeah, this is JDBC code, guys. Similarly, we used to have Hibernate code for local transaction. Hibernate code for local transaction management. Yeah, both are programmatic, boss. We are writing Java code for this, means definitely programmatic. Programmatic, boss. Yeah, business method as it is, guys. That's fine. So we try to get the session object, guys. Session SCS is equal to the people who knows Hibernate. We will try to take one Hibernate util class. There will be having get session method. We'll try to take Hibernate util class. There you'll be having get session method, boss. Okay. Now tell me here now. Transaction TX is equal to null. Try block. Begin transaction. What transaction? Begin transaction. Just a minute. I need to start one server WebLogic, guys. Aracle middleware, Aracle home, user projects, domains, domains. Okay. 414 domain and extension. Yeah. 414 domain and extension. Start WebLogic. Yeah, we'll see. If it is started, fine. If it is not started, not a problem. Yeah, here we are having begin transaction, guys. Begin transaction. How to begin transaction here? TX is equal to session dot begin transaction. TX is equal to session dot begin transaction. Here are my what? Execute logics, guys. Here are my execute logics. Yes, boss. If everything goes smoothly, we say commit transaction. What is this? Commit transaction. TX dot commit off. End of the try block. Here is my catch hibernate exception. What exception? Hibernate exception. Then rollback transaction. Rollback transaction. Tx dot rollback of. End of the catch block, end of the method. If everything goes smoothly, commit the transaction. If something goes wrong, roll back the transaction. Fine, boss. No, sir, listen. By calling con1 dot commit and con2 dot commit, similarly, con1 dot commit and con2 dot rollback. Similarly, con2 dot rollback and con2 dot rollback. Sorry, con1 dot rollback and con2 dot rollback. Are you listening? Similarly, con1 dot rollback and con2 dot rollback. Con2 dot rollback. Back to back. Back to back. Yeah, in case of Hibernate, TX1, TX2, guys. In case of Hibernate, what is that? In case of Hibernate, TX1, TX2. TX1 dot commit, TX2 dot commit. Similarly, TX1 dot rollback, TX2 dot rollback. Okay. In case of Hibernate, this. Why we cannot use JDBC or Hibernate for global transaction management? This is the very popular interview question. Okay, here what I do, instead of disabling auto commit on one database, I will disable auto commit on two databases. Connection one Oracle, connection to MySQL. I disable auto commit on both database. If everything goes smoothly, con1 dot commit, con2 dot commit. If something goes wrong, come on, con1 dot rollback, con2 dot rollback. Then I can use JDBC also for distributed transaction now, boss. Say something. Same thing here also. TX1 pointing to session 1, session 1 pointing to Oracle. TX2 pointing to session 2, session 2 pointing to MySQL. Here I begin two transactions. One belongs to Oracle, one belongs to MySQL. Here I commit to, here I roll back to. So then tell me, if I do like this, even JDBC and Hibernate also can be used for global transaction or not? Say something, guys. But why we are not using it? Why we are not using it? This is the $1 billion question, right? Okay, boss. Now listen. When you are keeping TX1 dot rollback, TX2 dot rollback, back to back, connection 1 dot rollback and connection 2 dot rollback, back to back. Come on. In between these two things, if any exception is raised, suppose when connection 1 dot rollback is called exception is raised, do you think it will go to connection 2 dot rollback? Suppose connection 2 rollback exception is raised, do you think it will roll back connection 1 1? Similarly, while executing connection 1 dot commit, exception is raised. Do you think it will execute connection 2 dot commit? No. Do you think while executing connection 2 dot commit, exception is raised? Do you think it will comment rollback connection 1 dot commit execution? No. No. So that time problems will come or not? Problems will come or not? Okay. If the exception is raised in connection 2 dot commit, okay, the connection 1 dot execution, connection 1 dot commit execution will not be rolled back. Okay. Okay. Ravi asked one item question. Did you ever did you ever written JDBC code in your life, Mr. Ravi? Did you ever write JDBC code in your life in your Ravi? First answer my question. We have to take one connection object, but it is not possible for two databases. Dirty fellow. How you will take one connection object for two databases? We have to take two connections, right? Okay. If exception raised in con2 dot commit, then con1 dot execution will not be rolled back. Con1 dot execution effect cannot be rolled back, cannot be rolled back, cannot be rolled back. Similarly, if con2 dot rollback throws exception, con1 dot rollback, con1 dot rollback execution cannot, execution gives problem. So same case in case of, same issue in case of Hibernate, same issue in case of Hibernate, in case of Hibernate. So both are not good for, both are not good for global transaction management. Convinced, boss? If I take intro, I will definitely ask this question. Why are you going to Spring? Why are you going to EasyAB? Why are you going to what? Some other concept, boss. Why don't you do like this? Back to back, why don't you call con1 dot commit, con2 dot commit, con1 dot rollback, con2 dot rollback? Call it. But practically some issues are there or not there. It executes smoothly, but one or other situation, it may give hand, boss. If one commit gives problem, other commit execution cannot be called off. One rollback gives problem, another rollback execution cannot be called off. So that's why it's going to be serious issue to consider, boss. Okay. That's why they have come up with, okay, for global transaction management, for global transaction management, we need global transaction manager or distributed transaction manager. Okay, manager who 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 performs commit or rollback operations on the multiple database softwares of same boundary. Same boundary means belonging to same transaction. belonging to same transaction. Multiple database softwares of same boundary who performs commit and rollback operations on multiple database softwares of what? Same boundary in single shot. In single shot. Yes, guys. Who provides this distributed transaction manager? Who provides this distributed transaction manager? So generally we get distributed transaction manager from application servers like WebLogic, Glassfish, and etc. Or from for third party vendors like Atomacus, Atomacus, comma, Atomacus, comma, Narayana. Third party vendors like what? Atomacus, comma, Narayana. Yes, Narayana might have given by Indian boss. That's why that name is coming. Fine. We have a third party vendors, guys. Okay. Yes. In application servers, the distributed transaction manager is placed in JNDI registry having fixed JNDI name. Fixed JNDI name. In case of WebLogic server, that okay. In case of WebLogic server, okay, I will tell what is that JNDI name. I already started WebLogic. It is running smoothly. If not WebLogic, you can go for Glassfish also. If you can go for Wildfly, just do some R&D in the internet. You will get distributed transaction manager in those servers also. I think this WebLogic is running on which port number, guys? This WebLogic is running on which port number? It is not showing anywhere. Listening on 7011. Can I believe that? HTTP is running on 7011. Am I right? Okay, 7011 or 7001. Okay, I think 7011 only. I'm trusting this. Right, boss. Yeah, already everything is ready, boss. I'm just using that WebLogic server to show it. 7171. 71, not 7171. 7001, boss. 7011. Okay. So 7011 slash console. Yes, it's coming. Takes bit time. Okay. Asking to submit username password, boss. Generally, I take Java boss, Java boss. Java boss, Java boss. One we will take as username password. I think in advanced Java class I introduced WebLogic server now. Nowadays I'm not introducing because I'm afraid about your laptops. Once WebLogic is installed, your laptop will be slow down. Your laptop will definitely slow down, boss. Okay, guys. Now tell me. Servers, environment servers, admin server, JNDI tree. See this? Java X slash transaction slash user transaction. This is distributed transaction manager. This fellow is seriously distributed transaction manager. Sure, sir. Definitely. And it is the JNDA name. In WebLogic server, the JNDA name is, in WebLogic server, the JNDA name is javaxs dot transaction dot user transaction. Okay, boss. Now listen. This is the JNDA name. And you are able to see it also, boss. Are able to feel it also. javaxs slash transaction slash user transaction. So here binding name, check it out. This is the binding name. Class name is different. So now distributed transaction. You have not written this code in your lifetime. Okay, first time you are listening. Distributed transaction management using JTA, Java Transaction API in programmatic approach. In programmatic approach. Yes. So as usually business method, guys, no doubt. As usually business method. As usually business method. Okay. Right, guys. Next, first one, get distributed transaction manager from the JNDA registry of underlying server. From the JNDA registry of underlying server, boss. Cool. I'm giving complexity, boss, nothing else. User transaction, it's a predefined class name. UT is equal to, acha, before that. Initial context, remember? The initial context IC is equal to new initial context of user transaction UT is equal to IC dot lookup. IC dot lookup. Tell me. Java X slash transaction slash user transaction. User transaction. Yes. I got it from server, guys. Next. Begin transaction. Then what is that? Begin transaction. How to begin? UT dot begin off. It begins the distributed transaction, boss. It begins the distributed transaction. Begin distributed transaction. UT dot begin. Here queries. Queries to execute. Queries, SQL queries to execute on multiple database softwares. SQL queries to execute on multiple database software. Are you listening, boss? SQL queries to execute on multiple database softwares. Next one. If everything goes smoothly, UT dot commit. If everything goes smoothly, UT dot commit. Try UT dot begin. SQL queries to execute on multiple database software. Yeah, you may use using multiple connections. Using multiple connections or sessions. Using multiple connections or multiple sessions. Yeah, what is the beauty, you know? UT dot begin, distributed transaction is started. Here you are using three connections and talking to three databases to perform three persistence operation. It will keep track of all the three databases in a boundary. If you talk with the 10 databases here to send and execute 10 queries, it will distributed transaction manager keeps track of all the 10 database software by keeping them in a boundary, by keeping them in a same transaction boundary. I think now you are understanding what is same transaction boundary. Suppose here only two queries are there belongings to two different database softwares. Now it keeps two database software in transaction boundary and starts observing those database softwares. Starts observing those database software. So while executing these queries, while doing anything, if no exception is raised, we successfully commit the transaction. If any problem is raised, exception E, or if you know exact exception, that exception, we will say UT dot rollback. We will say UT dot rollback. We will say UT dot rollback. Yeah. But what is the headache? You from server or some third party, we have to perform this kind of lookup operation to get a distributed transaction manager. So that's the biggest headache or not. And moreover, we are mix. See guys, this code against of AOP was. In programmatic approach, we mix up transaction management code with business code. We mix up transaction management code, secondary logic with main business logics, like main business logics, which is against of AOP style programming. That's why we should. That's why we should encourage AOP style programming or not. Definitely we should encourage. But here we are not able to achieve that AOP style programming in programmatic approach. Did you realize that? Okay. Moreover, whatever drivers we are using to establish these connections, guys, not normal drivers. We should use special XA drivers. And WebLogic is giving those XA drivers also. Seriously, sir? Yes. Check it out. Services, data sources, new, generic data source, some ABC, Aracle next. Look at the drivers. There are some XA drivers, boss. There are some XA drivers. Come on. These are normal drivers. These are normal drivers. These are XA drivers. So we need XA drivers also. Whatever connections we are creating here, whatever sessions we are creating here, they should be created with the support of XA JDBC drivers. Then only this 2PC protocol works nicely, boss. Okay. This is beauty. XA means extended architecture. XA means extended architecture. Now listen, boss. See, I am not saying con1 dot auto commit true, auto commit false. I am not saying con2 dot auto commit false. I am not saying con1 dot commit, con2 dot commit. Here 10 databases are involved. This distributed transaction manager on which transaction is begin will start monitoring all 10 databases. If everything is smooth, if you say ut.commit, all 10 database modified data will committed in single shot. If any problem comes, guys, control goes to catch block, ut.rollback. All 10 database data will be rolled back in single shot. All 10 database software's data will be rolled back in single shot. I think you understood my point, guys. Come on. After calling ut.begin, if application is, if the code is performing, okay, performing persistence operations on 3 database softwares, then they will go into transaction boundary, and and 2PC protocol will be implemented on them, will be implemented on them. 2PC protocol will be implemented on them. Okay, guys. Transaction to on will be implemented on them. That means when ut.commit is called, the data modified in 3 database softwares will be committed in single shot, not one after another, single shot, all at a time, all at a time. Who will take care? Distributed transaction manager will take care. How? By using 2PC protocol. It will verify all are perfectly modified. Yes, modified. No problems. Okay, guys. ut.commit is called the data modified. The data modified in 3 database softwares will be committed in single shot. Otherwise, will be rolled back. Otherwise, will be rolled back in single shot. Will be rolled back in single shot. Understood my point, guys? Right. Okay, guys. But what is the issue, guys, here? Programmatic approach is against of AOP style programming, because we mix up programmatic transaction management, because we mix up the secondary logic, TX management, and the business logic in same method. Come on. Do you like this? This is our what we learned. AOP says same thing, boss. Do you think AOP says same thing? AOP never says same thing, boss. Okay. Right. That's why people used to work with EasyAB for declarative approach, boss. EasyAB for declarative approach. Distributed transaction management using EasyAB in declarative approach. That means everything will be done in XML, boss. I'm just giving idea before arrival of spring what people used to do. People used to do this many dances, guys. Okay. Now tell me. First EasyAB component will be there. This is EasyAB component. Public class, some EasyAB component. What component? Payment component or bank component. Okay, implements. Yeah, to make this one as a EasyAB component, some interface implementation is required. But we are least bothered, we know that. So this is our business method, guys. This is our business method. And interestingly, here we'll be having purely business logic. Purely business logic, no question of any third party logic. Purely business logic here. Okay, guys. Now listen. This is my EasyAB component, only business logic. Okay, here there will be some jar XML file, guys. EasyAB-jar.xml. Okay, guys. EasyAB-jar.xml. Configure, configure, server managed, distributed transaction manager. Some XML tags will be there. Manager by specifying it's a JNDI name. That's the number one. Number two, configure EasyAB component. Configure business method of EasyAB component having the above transaction management service. The above transaction management service. The above transaction management service. Let it be, boss. Here is my business logic. Here is my easyab-jar.xml file. I hope you are understanding my statement, guys. Let it be, boss. It's a declarative approach or not? Am I touching? Am I writing transaction code in the business method? No. Everything is happening in declarative approach. Whenever you want, you can enable. Whenever you want, you can disable. That means AOP style programming is there in EasyAB before arrival of Spring only. So that's why that's why I don't think that Spring is popular because of its AOP style programming. Similar kind of programming is there in EasyAB before arrival of what? Spring itself. Separating primary logic from secondary logics already done, already happening in what? EasyAB itself. EasyAB itself. So now what is the problem now? Observe very carefully. For different transactions, we should write different types of codes using different technologies. Tomorrow, if technology change or model of transaction changes, again I have to modify the code. It's like individual remotes to operate individual devices, guys. It's like individual remotes to operate individual devices. Are you listening? Okay. Yesterday also I discussed it, na? So that is a main problem. Suppose I want to go to local to distributed, distributed to local. I have to modify code. I want to move to JDBC to Hibernate, Hibernate to JDBC. Again, I have to modify the code. I want to move to JTA to EasyB or EasyB to JTA. Again, I have to modify the code. Now tell me, guys, Spring provides abstraction on multiple technologies. Spring provides abstraction on multiple technologies, multiple frameworks. Yes. So if it gives one model of transaction code, if it gives one kind of transaction management code, internally it can generate Hibernate code when I choose Hibernate as underlying technology. It can generate JDBC code when I choose JDBC as underlying technology. It can generate JTA code when I choose JTA as underlying technology. Come on, tell me. I may change. I may change local to global, global to local. I may change underlying code persistence logic environment is JDBC to Hibernate, Hibernate to JDBC, or something else. Do I need to modify code of transaction management in Spring Boss? No. It's like a global. It's like it's like universal remote or not. It's like automated home or not. Home with automation. Alexa, I came home. Alexa, I came home is one instruction, boss, one command. Okay, Alexa will arrange the lights to move according to what mood you set, what mood you configure when you came home. Esa no na. Okay, night relaxed. Night relaxed. You are in a mood of watching TV. Watching TV or watching movie. Alexa, movie mode. Okay, Alexa will dim the lights, will switch on the AC, will switch on the TV. Okay, will create that mode here, theater mode, by dimming the lights and other things. So that is automation nowadays. You want to feel it? Just watch some videos in the YouTube. So many videos are there in the YouTube. Watch them. Yeah, what is the advantage, guys? If I change one AC to one company AC to another AC, no problem. I can configure in the automation application. If I change one company TV with another company TV, I can still configure with automation application. I can still configure with automation application. Come on. Are you enjoying my statement here, guys? Right. So that's the beauty of Spring Transaction Management. So interviewer asks the question. Why should we go for Spring Transaction Management when we have we have multiple models? Automation is not just for on and off, Babu. Automation is for increasing speed, decreasing speed. Automation is for dimming the lights and brightening the lights. Automation is automation is for opening the curtains also. It's not just for on and off. Spend time in YouTube, please. Okay, because it looks like I'm promoting automation. Why should we go for Spring Transaction Management when we have multiple models of transaction management? Yes, guys. In other models of transaction management, we should write different APIs code to perform transaction management using different technologies. So changing from one technology to another technology needs the modification of code. Modification of code. Tell me, my dear, needs the modification of code. Changing from one technology to another technology needs the modification of code, guys. Super. Copy, paste. And moreover, changing from local transaction to global transaction, all and vice versa also modifies the code. Are you feeling it, boss? Right, guys. Now listen. Since Spring provides abstraction on multiple technologies and frameworks. Abstraction on multiple technologies and frameworks. Are you listening, guys? Okay. So it provides unified model. This word is used very intelligently, boss. Unified model of transaction management. It provides unified model of transaction management. That means it internally unified model of transaction management. That means it gives single API, single API, single API or single API or single process for a transaction management. Okay, in AOP style. What style? AOP style means declarative. In AOP style, but makes you to work with different technologies like JDBC, Hibernate, JTA, and etc. and etc. and also makes you to implement also makes you to implement also makes you to implement different types of transactions like local, global transaction, local transaction, global transaction. Okay. Moreover, okay, unified model in AOP style, but makes you to work with the different technologies and all this stuff. That's why Spring Transaction Management is powerful or not, guys? Definitely powerful. Now listen. Different ways of implementing Spring Transaction Management. Okay, in how many ways we can implement? Okay, now listen. expects a AOP. Expects a AOP declarative approach. That means I can apply Spring transaction on different technologies in different model, different types of transaction management in Aspects AOP declarative style, guys. That means through XML. Through XML, I can apply. Are you listening? I can apply transaction management in XML. Okay. Next, Aspects AOP annotation approach. Aspects AOP annotation approach. Next, Aspects AOP. Aspects AOP 100% code driven configuration. 100% code driven approach. Aspects AOP Spring Boot, guys. Aspects AOP Spring Boot approach. Everyone got the point, guys? Sir, I am again confused. Why 4 approaches? There should be single approach now. It's not like that. You take any approach, you can apply transaction. And in that any approach, you can choose JDBC, Hibernate, JTA, and you can move local to global, global to local. Right? Something like this. Okay. Individual devices, individual remotes, like old style of transaction management in Java. Universal remote is like hmm, universal remote is like Spring transaction. But to manufacture this universal remote, also multiple companies will be there or not. Manufacturing these universal remote, also multiple companies will be there or not. And while manufacturing these universal remote, also different technologies will be there or not. But any technology basic theme is what? One remote for instead of multiple remotes. That basic bottom line is not changed. But how that one remote works for multiple remote, different types, different protocols, different times, different technologies. But the basic bottom line is remaining same or not. Okay, for example, okay, instead of managing device, electrical electronic device in our home manually, go for automation. Array, automation also, some people will implement that automation by using Zigbee protocol. Some people will implement by using Z-Wave protocol, G-Wave protocol. Yes, I have done some R&D on automation. Don't worry about it. Okay, Zigbee protocol, G-Wave protocol. Okay, for example, Hoger company runs on G-Wave protocol. Okay, some other company runs based on Zigbee protocol. Understanding my point? Array, these Alexas, Google Home, all these are working based on those protocols only. G-Wave, Zigbee protocols. Okay, one is using G-Wave protocol, one is using Zigbee protocol. But basic concept is same, na? X company, Y company, though they are using different technologies for automation, but at the end, both are doing automation or not. I hope I am succeeded injecting this point to your brain. Come on, guys. Everyone, please respond in the chat box. Naresh IT is offering IoT course. Find out. Naresh IT is like a ocean. Naresh IT is like ocean. Right from C language to high-end data science, every course will be there. Sometimes we don't focus because we are busy. Mostly will be there. I think we are offering course on IoT also. Okay. I think I am succeeded injecting this point to your brain or not. Okay. Now listen. But sir, okay. In Spring, transaction service is a built-in advice, built-in advice, built-in advice acting as around advice plus around advice plus throws advice. Acting as around advice plus throws advice. And we can get that advice, get that advice by configuring appropriate transaction manager. By configuring appropriate transaction manager. Okay. Based on this transaction manager, based on this transaction manager configuration. Okay. Spring also understands okay transaction type, local or global. Okay. And underlying technology to use. Underlying technology to use. Seriously, boss, that much importance is there for this transaction manager. Yes, guys. Driver manager data source. This is your transaction manager which you are configuring as a transaction service, boss. What is the meaning of this? For local transaction management using JDBC. Seriously, boss? Yes. Hibernate transaction manager. Hibernate transaction manager. For local transaction management using Hibernate. Next, guys. IBT is transaction manager. One minute. Driver manager transaction. Driver manager. No. Data source transaction manager. Data source transaction manager. Oh, Hibernate transaction manager. Array, why this data source came, boss? Hibernate transaction manager. Next, IBT's transaction manager. For local transaction, no. For local transaction management using IBTs. Using IBTs. Yes, boss. This is IBTs, na boss? BTs. Similarly, I am talking about one more important thing. JTA transaction manager. JTA transaction for global transaction management. Global transaction management using any technology. Using any technology. Here, technology is not important. I think you understood, and many things are there like this, and etc. All these are implemented subclasses of all these are subclasses of platform transaction manager. All these are subclasses of platform transaction manager class. Yeah, we have JPA transaction manager, Hibernate transaction manager, data source transaction manager. We have multiple transaction managers, boss. Tell me, so far in AOP, I developed advice manually. Now I'm going to take transaction as the built-in advice. How to configure that built-in advice? By choosing appropriate transaction manager. What this transaction manager tells? I am a transaction service which is internally implemented as what? Around advice plus throws advice. Moreover, based on the transaction manager you choose, it internally decides whether you are looking for local or global transaction and using which technology. That means if you configure data source transaction manager as the advice class, you must have persistence logics in DAO using either plain JDBC or Spring JDBC. Plain JDBC or Spring JDBC. Even Spring JDBC also okay. Because Spring JDBC also internal uses na boss. Okay, Spring ORM or Spring Data JPA. 1 minute. Spring ORM or Spring Data JPA. Spring ORM or Spring, because all these are internal uses what? Spring Data JPA. All these are internal uses Hibernate. Understood, boss? Satisfaction has come. I might have taken 3 days time to introduce, maybe 2 days time. 1 day, half day only we spent. But at the end, we got solid subject of why we need Spring Transaction Management. What is the advantage of Spring Transaction Management? Nowhere in the internet also subject will not be presented like this. I can say definitely. Now I think you realize it, guys. Super. Our next class will be on Monday, guys. Thank you. We'll meet on Monday. Thank you. Have a nice time. Okay. Raz, Spring Data JPA videos will be provided. It is not part of the course.